It was hopeless. Me and Whiskey Jack were outnumbered 20-1, and there was no escape. From behind a strand of hair that had fallen to my face, a wicked smile took root. Lifting my eyes to meet the glare of my enemy, I could see them all shake in fear. They knew the odds, but it was clear they weren't giving up without a fight. So, spitting my box cutter in hand, I held my blade at the ready. Beside me, licking his paw, Whiskey tried hard to ignore me. "Whiskey," I said, "I'm sorry, but this whole mess is my fault. But if you watch my back, I'll fix it." Pausing in his work, Whiskey turned his green eyes to me and blinked once. Like all narcissistic cats, he looked away and flicked his tail with indifference. I laughed aloud as the imaginary world I had weaved fizzled back into my small apartment. Blowing the hair from my face, I tapped one of the countless moving boxes surrounding me and Whiskey. Still smiling and in a good mood, I knelt to cut open the first box of the night. But before my blade broke the plastic barrier, I froze, pursing my lips. Like a toxic fog, the box before me choked the playfulness I had just felt to death. Pulling the cutter away, I asked myself why I had started with this one box. Across the top in marker, I had written the word secret. Truth was that what lay in the box scared me. Taking a deep breath to control my emotion, I slid the box to my left to be sorted later. But in the end, pushing the box away was a futile attempt to regain serenity. Like a slap to the face, I looked away from the box. This wasn't supposed to be how it happened. My intent hadn't been to hurt her. When the manager position at the Amazon distribution center was offered me, I leapt. At last, I was going to be my own woman, work a job that I was truly excited for. And so, fueled by this excitement, I bought a car, new clothes, and my very own up-to-date iPhone. In my mind, I was pursuing my dream, and nothing was going to stop me. And then, Mom found out. In a flash, I was home and could see her pointing to the window where my new car could be seen. "You're hurting me, Adia," she said, clutching her heart. "I had hoped that you would become a nurse and stay in Atlanta. But I guess if you want to run away to Arizona, that's fine. I'll deal with it eventually." Tired of the abuse, I ran. It had always been like this at home. Mom was a master at turning her sadness into a weapon and aiming it at others. Like an abuser that knows exactly where to strike so not to leave a bruise, Mom knew what to say to hit the heart. As usual, I was her main target. To the casual observer, she was just a caring mother. But to the child she raised, things were different. I was emotionally abused, to be seen and not heard. What I had foolishly meant to be a show of independence had been seen as a willful defiance, intended specifically to hurt her. Worn out, I changed my number, and Dad dropped my things off at Aunt Jill's the next day. My phone rang. I was glad to have an interruption to my thoughts. I looked to see who was calling, only to find an unfamiliar number. Not sure if it was someone at Amazon, I slid the icon and answered with a kind hello. A man asked, "Who is this?" It struck me how incredibly weary and forlorn the man's voice sounded. He sounded as though he had been awake for days. Still trying to distract myself, I pinned my phone to my shoulder and turned back to my boxes. Cutting open the second box of the night, I thought little about the strangeness of the man on the other side of the line. In the 2 weeks since changing my number, I'd grown used to receiving a lot of attention from telemarketers, scammers, and even a doctor's office looking for a guy named Mac. To me, it was just the curse of owning a used number. "This is Adia," I replied stupidly as I made a face at a shirt from my one and only relationship. Balling up the unwanted rag, I tossed it into the trash pile. "Ugh." The tired man responded as though I had just kicked him in the gut. After clearing his throat, he mumbled, "I should have known." I frowned in confusion. He seemed genuinely hurt. That was a first from the used number callers. From beside me, Whiskey Jack mewed and began aggressively rubbing my leg. Standing, I walked across my apartment to the kitchen for a can of cat food. To my surprise, the guy just sat in silence as I opened the can. Focusing more on the can than the call, I said, "Yeah, real sorry, sir. This is a new number for me, so Daniel isn't there?" I placed my hand on the counter beside the open can of food, trying to figure out why I hadn't just hung up yet. At my feet, Whiskey almost revolted. His rubbing and mewing grew more intense. I apologize, sir, but there's no Daniel here. Sorry to bother you, I guess. The voice suddenly died away mid-sentence. I rolled my eyes and almost hung up. I'll just end it then. I was hoping I could talk to Daniel. Sure. I set Whiskey's food on the ground. In a flash, the attention the cat had given me was worth nothing compared to his food. Hope you can find him. Have a good night. The line clicked. With a sigh, I dropped the phone on the counter and threw my hands up in irritation. Whiskey paused and looked at me, mewing once and licking his nose, as though criticizing me for being so rude. Having added his 2 cents, Cat returned to his meal. I blew the strand of hair that had fallen back into my face. Oh, shut up, Whiskey. You're starting to sound just like Mom. I glared at my gluttonous cat. Sure, he sounded so disappointed, but I can't help him, so just shut up and eat. Standing there in my kitchen, watching my cat eat while I talked to him, I suddenly began to feel like an idiot. I was being a baby. I was scared of a box-marked secret, and now my cat was making me feel guilty. So, taking a deep breath, I rebuilt my flimsy resolve to be strong. Then turning to my own needs, I opened the fridge, hoping for the makings of a salad, only to find soggy spinach. I tossed it in the trash and returned to the bare fridge. Nervously, I examined the last few pieces of lunch meat. They smelled okay, so I nibbled on them warily while sitting on the counter. From where I sat, I looked out at the fading sun and decided not to go out tonight. There was too much to do. Besides, I didn't want to abandon my new place. So, pulling up my banking app, I checked my account and groaned in pain. I was running out of funds. Not allowing this one problem to slow me down, I hit the speed dial and waited for an answer. A warm voice appeared on the line. Well, look who it is. The great adventurer hasn't forgotten us. Aunt Jill's words were exactly what I needed. For the first time since driving off, I felt a little less afraid. Hi, my favorite aunt, I said with my sweetest voice, which still couldn't mask my stress. Jill laughed, not picking up on my strain. How's Hades? I rolled my eyes and threw Whiskey's empty can at the trash box with a clang. Oh, come on. You know it's springtime. Arizona's really nice this time of year. Mm-hmm. She was probably shaking her head. Girl, it should be a crime for anywhere to be 70 degrees during the winter. That's just nasty. You don't hear me whining, I replied. Oh yeah? Wait until August. She laughed again. How's it going? Your place okay? I can still fly out and help you sort your stuff, and I know your parents would love to come along. At the mention of Mom's visiting, I crossed the apartment to my balcony and opened the glass door, allowing a cool breeze to fill the place. Nah, I'm okay. I was just wondering if I could, I paused, hoping she would gather what I was implying. But, just like any good aunt, she listened, forcing me to say it. I was wondering if I could borrow some money. I'm a little short on groceries, and I think Mom's still upset at me for taking this job. Jill laughed. Sure. I won't even tell your mom, okay? I can put it on your account in just a minute, but promise me something, girl. Will you at least tell your mom how you feel and fix this thing? I really don't think she knows how she's hurting you. The breeze from the outside that had cooled me died. I promise. I'll think about it, was all I could say. Good. I'll send you the cash now. Thanks, Auntie. I promise I'll have you over when I get everything together. You'll love it here. You may even become a snowbird. That's my girl. Well, love you and be safe, okay? Sure, I said, dreading the loneliness about to come. Love you. I hung up and leaned over the balcony and looked over the Phoenix Valley. High up from my castle tower, from 7 stories up, the view was dazzling. Street lights and buildings glittered in the night like stars in the still lake. My phone buzzed and I saw Jill's text. Money's there. Love ya. In moments, a pizza was ordered, and I began my wait by clicking on my new TV that had been a gift from Aunt Jill. I unpacked, sorted, and finally ate. With Whiskey vegging out next to me, I lost track of time, and midnight ticked past. Soon, the room was full of belongings and empty boxes. Somewhere into my 5th disc of Glee, my phone buzzed. Enchanted by the catchy tunes, I hummed along and picked up my cell without checking the caller ID. Hello? Daniel? A man asked on the other side. Few people knew my number. Even less would call me this late at night. I felt my heart pulse as I remembered the weary voice. Using the remote, I paused the show. Suddenly, living 2,000 miles from home felt dangerous. I was alone. In the dim light of the TV, I looked at the apartment door to make sure it was bolted with the chain in place. "Sir, you have the wrong number," I said, a little annoyed. "I'm sorry to bother you," said the man. "I was just hoping he would answer. I just don't know who else to call." "Well, please don't call me anymore. This isn't funny, and if you try anything, my husband will hurt you. I'm hanging—" "Please," the man begged. I froze. He sounded more afraid than I did. "If you do, I may just go through with killing myself. I just want to talk to Daniel." I gasped, slapping my hand in my mouth. "Is this a sick joke?" I asked. "If it is, I'll call the police." A sob on the other side made me jump. I stroked Whiskey's head, trying to steady my nerves. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The man moaned. "I just can't take it anymore. I'm just so worn out." I wiped my mouth, taking a deep breath. I forced my voice to be calm. "Have you called the suicide hotline? They'll be more helpful than me." The man didn't answer. In the stretched silence, I almost spoke 3 times, but I stopped short. I had no idea what to say. Forcing my eyes shut, I tried to remain calm. At last, I found my courage and tried again. "If you don't want to talk to me, then that's fine. How about I help you find Daniel?" Stress filled my mind as I realized the immenseness of the offer I was making. I didn't want this. "I don't think you can help me," the man growled. His tone was taking on anger, as if I had just said something offensive. "Sir, if Daniel owned this number before me, then we can find him. Are you sure it's the right number? Maybe you dialed the wrong number." "You don't understand," the man yelled. "During Vietnam, I had an address book. I used it to write friends and my girl back home. Daniel wrote this exact number down." The man sniffed and cleared his throat. "He and I were blood brothers. We'd seen the same garbage and pulled through it all. We even talked about how we'd keep in touch after we made it through that hell." "There's no need to do anything rash," I said with a touch of hurt. "I bet if I help you, we can find him." The man swallowed, not listening to what I said. "This old phone number is all I have left of him now. What hurt the most every day through the years was knowing that Daniel's was the one number I would never be able to call, even though I wanted to thousands of times." All color drained from my face as I gathered what he was implying. Swallowing, I stammered, "If you knew Daniel wasn't going to answer, why did you call tonight?" After a breath, full of fear and pain, the voice replied, "Tonight, I'm going to kill myself. I guess I was just hoping he would answer." The man sighed. "Well, goodbye." The line clicked. My phone beeped as the line was cut off. For what felt like an eternity, I stared at my phone with the call time flashing until it died and faded. I felt more alone. The voice was gone, but its sense of tiredness and failure clung to my frozen heart like a leech. I'm not going to lie. I think I know the value of a human life, but this was one that I did not want to be saved. Inside me, my soul screamed. This was a life. I couldn't just let this man throw his own away. In a flash, I picked up my phone and screamed as a message flashed that I had put in the wrong PIN. Again, I punched in my PIN, trying to ignore the little voices in my head, doubting my abilities to help a suicidal man. When I was finally able to dial, I fought off those voices, as each ringtone dragged on forever. The thought of being the last person to talk to this man was agony. The ringing stopped and I froze. "The Verizon wireless caller you are trying to reach has a voicemail that isn't set up." I swore aloud, shaking my phone. Hanging up, I redialed and held the phone to my ear. I had to keep trying. The tone stopped. My eyes swiveled around my gloomy apartment as I tried to guess what was happening. Somewhere in the world that I had interrupted, I could hear a soft rumble. "Hello?" I asked. I didn't know what more I could say or do. "Hello? This is Adia, the girl you were just talking to." Please answer. I want to ask you a question. I didn't know what I was saying. I just knew I had to get his attention. I have a question about Daniel. When no reply came, I felt my legs grow weak. I was too late. In my mind, I could see a man on the other side of the line laying on the floor, bleeding out, his eyes glazed, his body rapidly cooling. All because I didn't know what to say. Leave me alone. The man's voice was a ghostly whisper that set my heart to beat again. I ran my hand through my hair and almost withered at the presence of my second chance. I stammered, trying to think of what to say. Sitting there in my shadowy apartment with the TV frozen in time, memories of not knowing what to say to Mom drowned me. I had run from home to show I wasn't broken, but I'd only lied to myself. I hadn't changed. Still, I had to try. I want to know why. Why only can he help? Why not me? The man moaned. You'll never understand. No one understood. The man's insult was one that my mother had used. I suddenly became aware of the presence of the only unopened box behind me. The contents inside began squeezing my throat. Standing, I began to pace with my back to my box of failures. I think I will. I'm smart. I know people that don't understand me. The man was unimpressed. What difference does any of that make? Please, sir, I pleaded with all my soul. I want to hear about it. The man inhaled. You ever been spit on, Adia? I doubt you have. I haven't, I replied, almost wishing I had been. It's humiliating. He replied in a distant tone, as though he were reliving that cruel moment again and again in his mind. I remained silent. I served in Vietnam, or as everyone else calls it, that damned war. I bit my lip, trying to recall my history classes in college. But all I could recall was that it had been a bad war. Other than that, I knew almost nothing about Vietnam or the war. Feeling hopeless, I looked at the pathetic reflection of myself in my sliding glass door. Dressed in a tattered sweater and shorts, I stood with my free hand holding my body. I was scared. Realizing the silence was dragging, I asked, Is that what's bothering you? The man made a soft, mocking laugh. I wish. Well, I said, turning from my reflection, what would you have told Daniel? The man's voice became more depressed. I would tell him that I'd lived a worthless life. The only reason I'd suffered through it is I wanted to be happy. But in the end, I messed that up. Again, his words drifted off. At last, he came back to me. You know, I didn't ask to go to NAM. I was drafted. Scared the living crap out of me. Because just like that, I was a kid with a gun with orders to kill. Optimism flared in my eyes as my question had elicited a response. What happened next? I pried, hoping to find a reason to live in his past. I killed, the voice said matter-of-factly. My first kill was a woman. Did you know that, Adia? Does that make you think me a monster? I sank and trembled. This is not what I'd been hoping for. Did you do it on purpose? A dark laugh rumbled on the other side. You really don't know much, do you? I shot her, didn't I? We were patrolling a hamlet right after a mess of a boondoggle. I was on the edge, and adrenaline was making me shake. Her only mistake was that she was a Charlie that ran out with a gun. I pissed my pants, closed my eyes, and pulled the trigger on that brainless Kong. I didn't mean to shoot her. The man's voice paused, letting his monstrous actions play in my mind. Like a movie, the image of a surprised kid accidentally killing a woman played over and over in my mind. Each time the scene played out a little differently. But in the end, she always lay crumbled up in the mud. When it was done, my buds slapped me on the back and congratulated me for breaking my cherry. The man sucked in air, yanking me past the scene, only to face one more terrible. What almost drove me mad was that her body lay there for 5 days beside the hut before we burned it. Each day our patrol would pass by, and I would stare into her fly-infested eye sockets, trying not to puke as her flesh squirmed with worms and maggots. couldn't reply. Afraid to close my eyes to see the dead woman's maggot-infested body, I looked at Whiskey. When I finally came home, I saw her all the time, usually beside the road, sometimes in stores and once in my tub. It's been 12 years since I last saw her. I didn't like what I was hearing. The decades of suffering transmitted into my small haven almost stained my walls with its vile dye. Desperate, I tried to change the subject. Where was Daniel when that happened? The voice wheezed. America. He joined a year after I was drafted. Can you believe the stupid idiot joined of his own free will? His reasoning was that he wanted to bring democracy to the world. I loved him like a brother, but whenever he said that, all I could do was spit. Those little piss-pot Viet Cong didn't want democracy or anything from us. What they wanted was their land and their right to eat. That's it. Like a pig, they didn't care who oversaw them as long as they had their food in their belly. You know what the real truth of the war is? I'll tell you. The world wanted to fight over political ideas, and their land was the most available battleground. So in the end, I say damn the Kong, and the commies, and the rest of them. I gasped. In trying to change the memories, I had only shifted to a worse topic. Trying a better issue, I said, at least you came home to your friends and family alive. The man took a long moment to answer my immature statement. You really haven't listened, have you? I never came home. You know what? I'm done with this. No! I ran my hand through my hair, trying to think of what more to say. I wanted to say, you're a human and you have worth, but it seemed like the wrong prescription for such a sickness. You're helping me. I didn't know any of this stuff. Please, just talk to me. I don't even know your name. I waited, afraid that I had failed to meet this man's needs. Listening to the voice wheeze, as though breathing was getting harder, he finally answered, James. The name's James Alder. And today's my birthday. In my mind, the voice almost took on a face. Sad eyes and sun-dried cheeks. He sat alone in a dark place, as though in a spotlight on a dark stage. My soul cried for this forgotten man. I tried to say happy birthday, but I choked. Clearing my throat, I tried, Happy birthday, James. Must be fun to have your birthday the day after Valentine's Day. Not really, James muttered, his voice slurring. I was losing. James had clung onto the line despite my failings, but it was clear I was gaining no ground. Again, I looked at Whiskey, who had curled up on my folded clothes. I thought of what more I could say. Just then I realized his breathing was sounding different. James? I said, afraid of what I would learn. What are you doing? James didn't answer. James? What are you doing? I pressed. Sitting in a car, so leave me alone. His voice snapped, and I shrank as though burned. I closed my eyes. Everything in me wanted to hide from the conflict, but I had to press him to make sure he was okay. Doing what? I worried that I was going to ruin everything, but he seemed slower than before. It's running. The words scared me. I spun around with my phone against my ear as if he was behind me, the rumbling noise that had been there since the beginning of the call, along with his gradually slurring speech. James! I yelled. Open the car window! I'm not done talking to you. I waited for 2 heartbeats. Now! Do it for Daniel. He would be disappointed in you for dying this way. I bit my lip. If he was breathing carbon monoxide, I had to be direct. The faint rumbling in the back that I had barely noticed died, and I heard a window buzz for a moment. James began to cough and cry. I'm so scared, Adia. I miss Daniel. I tried to breathe. It's okay, James. Just relax. We can do this. Tears dropped down my face with little notice. Just talk to me. Adia, I've lived a bad life. A worthless life. I wiped my face and nose that was beginning to run. It can't be that bad. I've had it rough, but I keep going. James coughed. It is bad. Nam messed me up real good. A coughing fit took James for a moment, and then he took a ragged breath. Daniel was my brother, Adia. We saved each other's lives on our first patrol together. Those monsters ambushed us. We fought until we were out of ammo. Then it was hand-to-hand combat. He coughed again. I was tired and afraid, covered in blood. I didn't think I would make it out alive that night, but Daniel stayed by my side. Together we fought and lived. James took a deep breath. The rasp seemed to be diminishing. It was one of the worst things I ever saw. Almost my whole patrol was dead, around me and Daniel. Listening to the pain coming from James, I suddenly realized that all my life trials seemed petty and foolish now compared to this. I can't begin to say that I know what you experienced, I said. But you did do what you had to. You weren't at fault, James. You were just trying to help those people, just like Daniel said. Don't give me that garbage, James snapped. Don't you see it? You will never understand. Even after it was over, I couldn't understand. But that's not where I broke. Do you know what broke me? Huh? Daniel died 6 months after that ambush. And you know what's a real damn shame, Adia? He didn't even die in battle like a hero. Instead, he died in a puddle of mud 100 yards from the runway in a helicopter crash. Again, James coughed, but this time it sounded painful. James' cough reminded me of how close he had come to dying, and that I was only making it worse. James, you need to think of reasons to live. If you dwell on these things, you just talk yourself back into trouble. Do you have a family? A wife? James didn't answer. I could almost feel him sinking deeper into his depression. Did you get married? 5 times, James growled. Each one ruined by the war. I woke up choking my second wife. Scared the hell out of me so much that I didn't look at a woman for 3 years. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get any of them to love me for long. He paused. You have no idea, Adia. A vile bitterness spilled through my phone as he began to grow angrier. I tried to come home and live, but I was hated. The day I got home, I was spit on. I was spit on by so many people, Adia, that I threw away my uniform and bought new clothes, just to forget the war. I had thought I would return a hero. Without saying anything, I fell into the crowd, a broken man. James cleared his throat. I brought Vietnam home with me. I dreamed it. I smelled it. I never left it. The only way I found relief was in drugs. James's tone grew steadily darker. Look at your life. You say you've had it hard, but it's not that bad. You live in your cushy home with your husband, who has probably never killed a man, woman, or child. But before I even slept with the woman, I'd done all 3. James's words hurt. I felt as though a butcher knife had been run through my stomach. Sinking with James into his abyss of depression, I fell to the ground. I know what everyone says about Vietnam, Adia. All of you judge us saying we fought a corrupt war and spit on what we did. For me, my only crime was doing what was asked of me. My head fell into my chest. I was home hiding in the shadows, unsure of what to say. As much as I wished it, James's self-loathing didn't end there. As though possessed by a devil, his words began to fly at me. There were countless nights that I wish I could go back to that hell, as I lay in a dirty alleyway or empty park. At least in that nightmare, I knew where I belonged. I was a monster too, just like everyone else. But at least I could live with it. Here, no one wanted me. For years now, I have sat on the side of the road with a sign begging for money. I hid my face in my knees. I was a child, afraid to speak. No matter what I did, I ruined everything. I would have ended it sooner, but I was too scared to kill myself, he spat. I stole this crappy car thinking it would be easier. But again, I was just too scared. In an instant, his breathing became still, and almost as quiet as a sleepy whisper. James said, but I think I'm ready now. The rumble I had missed earlier started up and my heart stopped. Thanks for talking to an old man, Adia. It was the nicest thing anyone has done for me in a long time. But I'm tired now. Wait! I yelled in the darkness surrounding me. "Don't do it!" "Why?" James asked, his single word bearing the weight of decades of abuse. "Me!" I yelled. "I need you. When you called looking for Daniel, I learned something from you. I hate my mom. She has hurt me in ways that no one can see but are real to me. I know what it's like to be hurt. I need you. I need you because you know what pain really is, and together we can help each other." My heart fluttered. Never before had words come so strongly to me in my weakest moment. Taking a deep breath, I said, "You say you're worthless, but I don't. If you kill yourself now, your final act will be to abandon someone who needs you." I swallowed what felt like a fist-sized rock that had always choked my words. "James," I said, slow and steady, "you and me, we're not so different. We're both fighting an inner battle that no one sees. And you know what? We're both losing. We gave in to what others thought of us. But what we really need to do now is stand and show them that we're more. That we, too, have value." From the floor, I rose like the feeling in my chest. Standing in my dark apartment with my show frozen in a single moment, I suddenly became aware of myself. I felt calm. With my balcony door still cracked open, I felt the goosebumps on my legs pulling tight. I could feel my hair around my neck and even the weight of my clothes I was wearing. "James, killing yourself will be the worst mistake you've made, because by doing it, you will only be killing another innocent girl. So I ask you to live one more day, and we will take it from there. I can't answer for the rest of this crazy world, James, but I care for you. So please, James, tell me where you are. I will get some help for you. Once I do, I'll call you back and we can talk." A tear fell down my face. "Like friends, I promise." The car shut off, and James began to whimper. He was silent for a long while, but I was no longer afraid. I could hear a change in his crying. He was no longer crying for what had been. He cried because of the hope of what may be. At last, he told me where he was, and I jotted it down, my fingers careful to write every valuable letter. "I will call you right back, James. So think about what you want to tell me. No matter what it is, I'll listen, okay?" I hung up and called 911 and was relieved that the operator was able to direct my call to the California city where James was. After the new operator assured me that they would approach him with care, I hung up and called him back. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat on my balcony, wrapped up in a blanket, my messy apartment forgotten, and watched the pitch-black sky above the glittering lights fade into orange and reds, then into blue. I didn't know what would happen to James in the end. That was up to him, I guess. But what was really important was that he'd found help. Leaning my head back, I closed my eyes and soaked in the Arizona's morning sun. Pleased, I could feel the stress that had haunted me withering away in the light. In a way, I was at fault for his hopelessness that James had felt. I knew I wasn't directly at fault, but I couldn't remember the last time I had compassion for any person other than myself. Finally, when the light had fully warmed my face, I went inside and brought my only unopened box to the balcony. Picking up my phone, I dialed the number from memory. While listening to the ringtone, I pulled the tape from the top of my box, marked secret, and stared at the memories of the hurtful days past. At last, a woman's voice answered. "Hey, Mom," I replied with as much warmth as possible. "How are you doing?" Hi there, this is Judd Richardson, and thanks for making it to the end of the video. And if you're wondering, yes, I do have a face. I just think it looks a little better behind a microphone. If you liked my video, please subscribe and leave a like. It means a lot to me. And I hope that you will stick around for more.